Hey guys, Mr. B here for the first part of Math DBA 2 review. Make sure you read how this is going to work and have your parent print and sign this. Bring it back and forth to school each day and check my YouTube video each day for the next round of questions that we're going to go over. I start by making sure you understand you got your formulas right here. I want you to make a change to the formula chart. We talked about the formula for area of a triangle. Area equals 1/2 times base times height. My version is area equals base times height divided by 2. There it is. It's a little easier to work with. Same thing with area of a trapezoid. 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2 times height. It's a little easier if you do area equals base 1 plus base 2 times height and then divide the whole thing by 2. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So be sure to change those up. Also, volume equals big B times H. Big B means area of the base. Area is found with length times width. So my version of the formula for volume of a rectangular prism is volume equals length times width times height. Okay? The height is the same. The length and the width comes from area of the base. Capital B means area of the base. Area of the base of a rectangle is length times width. So these are the ones we used in class because they work a little better than using this version. Okay? So make sure you check your formula charts, and you may need some of your conversions as you work through these. Okay? All right, number 1. Frank had $65. He spent $2 per day for 7 days. Then he was given $9 to divide equally between himself and his 2 brothers. The following expression can be used to find the amount of money Frank had after that. So they gave you the expression. You didn't even have to build it. It's multiple operations. There's subtraction, multiplication, addition, and division. You need to use PEMDAS when you have multiple operations. So I rewrote it in its original form. I'm using PEMDAS here. I do not have any parentheses. I do not have any exponents. The next part is multiply or divide. Not multiply then divide. Multiply or divide. Whichever comes first, left to right. So multiplication is what I should do first. So 2 times 7 is what I did first. That's where the 14 comes from. So I just left everything else alone. 65 minus 14 plus 9 divided by 3. All right. Multiply or divide still. No parentheses, no exponents. No adding and subtracting yet because I still have division to do. So multiply or divide, whichever comes first, left to right. Division is left, so 9 divided by 3 is 3. Left everything else alone. 65 minus 14 plus 3. All right? Add or subtract. Not add first, then subtract. It's whichever comes first as you move left to right. So subtraction comes first. I've got to do 65 minus 14 first to get 51. Then add the 3. If you add 14 plus 3 first and get 17, and then do the subtraction, it's going to be wrong. 54 is what you want, and there it is. All right, number 2, a baby weighed 7.25 pounds at birth. At the end of 8 months, the baby weighed 2.5 times its birth weight. How many pounds did the baby weigh at the end of 8 months? Just read this literally. 2.5 times its birth weight. Here it is. 2.5, 2.5 times the birth weight, 7.25. That's what you want, 2.5 times 7.25. So here it is, 7.25 times 2.5. Do not line up decimals when you're multiplying. You move the decimal back after you're multiplying. This is not addition of decimals or subtraction of decimals. You don't have to line up the decimal. So do your multiplication carefully. There were 3 total decimal places in the original problem. Right here, 1, 2, and 3. So I'll move it back, 1, 2, and 3. 18.125. Just multiplying some decimals there. That's all we're doing. All right. Number 3 is a big problem. Takes up the whole page, but it's not hard. All right. Hector surveyed all the 6th graders at his school about their favorite after-school activity. The table shows the results that were used to make a bar graph. All right. 44 people picked reading, 55 picked sports, 55 picked video games, 66 picked music. So what percentage bar graph best represents the data? Forget what you see down here. It's asking you, out of your data, what percent was reading? What percent was sports? What percent was video games? What percent was 55? Okay? So you'll need to take these and change them to percents eventually. But it was 44 out of what? We don't know. So we got to add them all up first. So here I added them all up. There's a total of 220. That means 44 out of 220 picked reading. 55 out of 220 picked sports. Also 55 out of 220 picked video games, and 66 out of 220 picked music. So let's go find an answer choice that matches that. You can rule out the first answer choice immediately because you can count from 0 to 10. So there's 10. There's 10 more. That's 20. And this is halfway between 20 and 30. So that's 25. 25%. If you count this one, go backwards. Start at 50. 50 to 40 is 10. 40 to 30 is 10. And there's 5 more. That's another 25. If you count the percentages, they're all 25. We know A can't be correct because these are not all the same. It's sports and video games are the same. 55 out of 220, but music and reading is not. So if they're not all the same fractions, then they're not all the same percents. You can rule answer choice out A in no time. Answer choice B, you can rule it out really fast. Music is going to be the biggest percent because it's the most out of 220. But think about half. 66 out of 220 is way less than half. Half of 220 is 110. So if 110 out of 220 is 50%, there's no way 66 out of 220 could be 65%, which is over half. So music is the biggest, but there's no way that it's that big. You can rule that out quickly. C and D are very similar. So you have got to calculate the exact percentages, otherwise it's nothing but a guessing game. So I'd figured out ahead of time that reading was going to be the smallest, these two were going to be equal, and music was going to be the largest. And when I look at these two, it looks like reading is the largest in both. It looks like these two are pretty equal in both, and it looks like music is the largest in both. But that's not good enough. I don't want to just randomly choose between C and D. I need specifics. So I calculated them down here. I took my 66 out of 220. I need to turn it into a percent. I can just take 66 and divide it by 220 if I want to. That's an easy way to do it. It's going to give me a decimal, and I can take that decimal and turn it into a percent. But fractions were pretty easy too. I noticed they're both even, so I divided them by 2. I noticed that both of these could be divided by 11, so that gave me 3/10. And then I'm trying to make it a percent, so I want a denominator of 100, so I multiplied them both by 10. And 30 out of 100 is 30%, so music is 30%. So when I look at this one, they're both 30%. 70 to 80, that's 10. So 10, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30. So that didn't help me a whole lot there, all right? Music is definitely 30%, but that's the same in both answer choices. So I did reading. I noticed that they're both even, so they can both be divided by 2. And if they can both be divided by 2, they can probably both be divided by 4. So I started by dividing them by 4 and got 11 over 55. I noticed they could both be divided by 11, so I divided them both by 11 and got 1/5. And then again, I'm turning it into a percent, so I need a denominator of 100. So 5 times 20 gives me 100. 1 times 20 gives me 20. That's 20 over 100. That's 20%. So reading is a 20%. All right, when you look at answer choice D, there's no way reading is 20%. But in C, it is. So I can eliminate D from that point on. If I want to go and check sports and video games, I can convert that to a percent. and find out it's 25 and 25, and then I can match it up exactly, all right? You could have done a lot of work ahead of time with some common sense and just ruling some things out. All right. Number 4, pretty easy question. A barrel has 60 gallons of water. Water leaks out at a rate of 5 gallons every 3 days. So every 3 days, 5 gallons. 3 more days, 5 more gallons. 3 more days, 5 more gallons, right? At this rate, how many days did it take for all 60 gallons of water to leak out? Set yourself up a table, all right? Every time 3 days go by, 5 more gallons. So 3 days, 5 gallons. 3 more days, 6. 5 more gallons, 10. And I just keep going. 3 more, 5 more. 3 more, 5 more, 3 more, 5 more. Now, I could go all the way to 60 if I want to get my answer of 36. But I don't have to. I could stop right here at 30. If you double 30, that gives you 60 gallons. If you double 18, that gives you 36. You could also stop at 9. If you multiply 15 times 4, you're going to get 60. And if you multiply 9 times 4, you're going to get 36. So you didn't have to go all the way if you notice that pattern. So it would take 36 days for all 60 to leak out. 5, coordinate plane. All right. 4 points are on the coordinate plane. Which one does not appear to be represented by one of these points? Well, you got to take these points that are not so easy and turn them into something you can use. 5 halves, you don't know where that goes. You got to turn it into a decimal or a fraction. 5 halves, 5 over 2 is 5 divided by 2. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So instead of calling it 5 halves, negative 3, 2.5 negative 3 works a lot better. So here we are. Here's 2.5. Here's negative 3. So A is correct. The next one's easy. Negative 1.5 is just negative 1.5. So negative 1 and negative 1.5. So here we are at the origin. Negative 1. Here's negative 1, but negative 1.5 is here. So that is graphed incorrectly. It should be right there. So B is wrong. If you check the other two, 3 halves is equal to 1.5. And that one is in the right place. If you go check those coordinates, here is 1.5 and then positive 2. And then negative 4.5. Here's negative 4 and then up a half. All right. So remember, in coordinate planes, you have an x coordinate and a y coordinate. The x is telling you left or right, positive right, negative left. The y coordinate is telling you up or down, positive up, negative down. All right. Let's take a look at number 6. Carpenter wants to cut a board that is 5/6 foot long into pieces that are 5/16 foot long. The carpenter will use the expression shown to calculate the number of pieces that can be cut from the board. All right, look, you're cutting something into smaller pieces that are equal. That's division. Okay? I don't care if they're fractions or whole numbers. You're cutting something into smaller pieces, and those pieces are equal. That's division. If you didn't realize that, they told you, they set it up for you. 5/6 divided by 5/16. They told you what to do. We learned that when dividing fractions, don't be shy, flip the second number and multiply. You never really divide fractions. Instead, you multiply by the reciprocal. So you flip that second one over. 5/6 times 16/5. Answer choice F. It's an easy question if you remember the rule about multiplying fractions. Dividing fractions. You turn it into multiplying fractions. All right, 7. Volume. We just finished this a few weeks ago. This is a thinking question. The picture they show you is not the picture you need to solve it. You've got to build the rest of the picture to know what you need. The rectangle below represents the base of a rectangular prism. This rectangle only represents the base, what I highlighted in yellow. It doesn't show you the whole picture. Use the ruler provided to measure the dimensions of the rectangle to the nearest centimeter. Hopefully you got a ruler at home to measure this. All right. It's not exactly 4 centimeters. All right. when I use the ruler, oops, make sure you measure on centimeters when it says centimeters and not inches. Don't put the ruler at the end like this. Go to 0. So that is closer to 4 than it is to 3, so 4 centimeters. Same thing up here. It's closer to 5 centimeters than it is to 4, so we're going to call that 5 centimeters. So there's your base. And then it tells you the height is 12. So I just drew the rest of it. So I've got a base that has a 5 by 4 and a height of 12. Go to my formula chart. Volume equals length times width times height. Length, width, height. Multiply again. That's where I come up with my 240. If you want to use this formula, area of the base is big B. Area, length times width, 20. Now multiply it times the height, 12. Okay? 240 centimeters cubed. Use your formulas when you need volume. All right. Number 8. We have not taught this yet. This will be confusing. It will cause you to be frustrated. So just listen to how I'm going to describe this, and we will talk about this more in class when we get to it. This is called a box plot. You've never seen one before. They're confusing. Students record the amount of liquid and fluid ounces each of them drank in one day. The box plot shows the summary of the results. What you need to know about a box plot is it never shows individual responses. It never shows all of the individual data. It's not like a dot plot where every question you ask has a result. It's just a summary. So here's what you get in a box plot. You get the lowest amount, the lowest data point. You get the highest data point. So you get the low and the high. You get the median. That's the line that always cuts through the box. So that's the median. And you get this Q1 and Q3, which are called quartile 1 and quartile 3. And what that does is it divides the data from the beginning to the end into 4 pieces. So there's a yellow piece, a blue piece, a green piece, and a pink piece. There's your 4 pieces, all right? Again, it does not show individual data, all right? Between 24 and 36, there's a difference of 12. So that means there's 12 between these. And if you draw a little line down, that's halfway between them. So half of 12 is 6. So if I add 6 to 24, I get 30. And this one extends down to here. If I add 6 to 72, I get 78. Same thing here. If I add 6 to this, I get 90. If I add 6 to this, I get 114. Okay? So that's where I'm getting all my information. Which statement best describes the data represented in the box plot? All right. F. Half the students drank from 78 to 114 fluid ounces. This is true because the median is the middle. That's half right there. So half the students drank. So the first half is 30 to 78. The second half is 78 to 114. So that's true. Half the students drank from 78 to 114. That's your second half right there. Okay? I know it doesn't look exactly in the middle, but that's not how box plots work. All right, the rest, the greatest number of students drank from 30 to 78? No, 30 to 78, again, is the first half, so that's not greater than this is. It looks greater because it's bigger from here to here, but that's, again, this is not a number line, it's a box plot. So we're not looking at size. The data represents 78 student responses. Box plots never show individual responses. You cannot look at a box plot and see how many people gave you an answer. It doesn't work that way. The mean, that means average. The average number of fluid ounces that the students drank is 78. Again, you cannot calculate the mean without every single data point, and box plots do not show all data points. So I know that you will be confused about this one because we haven't taught it in class, but you should be able to watch this video and have a little bit more of an understanding about how box plots work. All right, that is 1 through 8 on your review. I hope you'll check these tonight and see how you did. I'll post another video tomorrow with about 8 more questions. So Tuesday to Tuesday, Tuesday today to next Tuesday, you need to be working every night, including the weekends, to prepare for DBA 2. So good luck, and I'll see you in class.